Well, when you see how everything is positioned on the driveway, there is not much doubt about what we're doing this week. It's another Boler camping trip. I figured we'd start with a quick little rundown of what we do to get prepared for a trip. So let's take a look at what I've done so far here off camera. So Emily has been busy already, making sure we have the fresh bedding, have our clothes up there in the bunk bed that we use for storage. I have dumped a toilet chemical treatment down in the toilet. I'll run some water down there when we get ready to leave so that it has a chance to slosh around the black tank a little bit. I have started the fridge here a few days ago to give it lots of time to cool down. This old Dometic fridge, 45 years old, running on electricity, does not get nearly as cold as quickly as a modern fridge, but it still works. And actually, when we switch it to propane, it gets nice and cold. So it always needs a few days basically to really chill before we leave. We're only going to be out for a couple nights, so we got some muffins for breakfast the one day. Emily's grabbing the bacon and eggs and some venison steaks for some meals. Of course, beer, Coke, water, all loaded up. And of course, speaking of water, I have to remember to fill the tank before we leave. I could do it out there. I'm sure there is a tap, but I'd rather do it now and not have to waste time once we get out to the campground. And besides, the tank on Bella's pretty small, so it doesn't add a ton of weight. With this old style water filler, I really need to just run the water in here at a trickle to keep it from constantly overflowing. There we go. And before everyone gets upset about me filling the tank using a garden hose, we don't use the water in that fresh tank in the trailer for drinking. It's purely for, dishes and flushing the toilet and things. So I don't really care that I'm not using a potable water hose for our tank fill. Alright, so I didn't record all of it, but you can see we're fully loaded. I've got some camping chairs, the barbecue, this camp stove, the propane fire pit in case it's raining and we don't want to mess around with stuff, some firewood. Hitch is all hooked up, safety chains in place, I've checked the lights, weight distribution bars are in place. So now, as soon as Emily gets back from picking up the last few things at the grocery store, we are ready to hit the road. A few more snacks to load yet too. So, almost there. sign is accurate and home is where we park it, then this is home. Site A333, Lower Lake Campground out in Kananaskis. You got to see a little bit of the setup while through the magic of time lapse. Didn't show you the whole thing because the camera cut out part way, took a little longer than expected, but Bella is set up. We've got the awning out because it's a little bit cloudy. There is rain in the forecast for this weekend. Mabel is in position. We have the retro tablecloth already out and on the picnic table. Propane tank standing by if we have to resort to a propane fire pit this weekend in the rain. Main fire pit here, not as close to this guy wire as it appears on camera, but there we go. There's our home for a couple nights. Should be fun. We'll see what the weather does. Like I said, it's kind of partially cloudy right now. Definitely rain in the forecast. We will see what happens. So I'm quite happy with my site selection. You know, went online, looked at the satellite view on Google Maps, looked at the campground map, picked it for a couple of different reasons. Number one, it's got a nice long driveway, so our actual site is quite a bit ways off the road, keeps Mabel from barking at any other dogs that come by, gives a little more privacy. The picnic table is on the right side of the trailer, so you come out the door, you got your picnic area, which doesn't always happen. There are some sites that are kind of backwards. And then the other part I like here, absolutely no neighbors whatsoever on this side of us. It was a little bit of a blind side back in. For those not familiar, blind side backing is when you have to come in to the passenger side, because then as your truck angles, your driver's side mirrors looking out at nothing and your passenger side mirrors just looking at the side of your trailer. But it's got a pretty wide entrance, and when you're only towing a 17-foot trailer, that's not really that bad at all. Not like when you had a longer trailer trying to back in blindside. And we did see signs on the way in saying bear in the area, so bringing our bear spray with us as we head to the registration booth to drop our little form in the box. So we had noticed when we drove in that the campsites had been, or the signs referring to the campsite numbers had been kind of pasted over, and they had removed some sites, and this is one of them right here. So yeah, not sure why this one and a neighboring site just over here both have been completely decommissioned, which seems like an odd thing to do at a time when demand for campsites is higher than ever. If anyone knows why, let us know. Well, it's been actively raining / drizzling pretty much all afternoon, but it's time to head outside here after a bit of a nap and start a fire so we can actually have our traditional first night camping meal of hot dogs. Now, I have a really good supply of super dry firewood from our neighbor that we bought it off of, and, you know, an ignition stick. So this isn't exactly Tom Hanks in Castaway kind of level of fire making, but there is great satisfaction in seeing a fire grow from very little and building it up. So now I think I've got it. So while Emily is going for the easier, safer load while the hot dog stick is cold approach, I'm going for the fire is nature's cleanser, and I want to sanitize my stick prior to sticking the hot dog on it. Just gonna take the dog for a final walk around here. It's about 10 o'clock, a little after 10. It's rained off and on here through the evening, but a beautiful, quiet night here at the campground. We're getting ready to head in for the night. Throw a little water on this fire and dampen it down here. Lots of good hot coals left. Put our stuff away, knowing it's probably going to continue to drip rain overnight. And with that, we'll see you tomorrow for our first full day here at the campground. Well, we've made it to our first morning out at the campsite. The rain has stopped and the sun is out. There's only a few clouds around right now. We don't know what the rest of the day is going to hold in terms of weather, but right now it's as good a morning as you can hope for. Coffee's done. Bacon is cooking. It's a beautiful Saturday. So we're just gonna follow this paved pathway down towards the Interlakes campground and go hunt for a geocache while we're there and tire the dog out a little bit. So the trail has kind of come up and over a little ridge. We're kind of by the main road now that heads towards Kananaskis Lakes. You can't see it through the trees, but Upper Kananaskis Lake is right on the other side of that road, and we're working our way down towards Lower Kananaskis Lake. Rain is continuing to hold off, but if I zoom in to get the exposure better for you there, you can see there's fresh snow up in the mountain peaks yet. Well, we are in the closed Mount Surrail campground, tenting campground by the looks of it here, or at least these are all the tenting sites, and we can't seem to find the trail down to the lake that takes us to the cache. We're less than 300 meters from the cache, but all through here with no obvious trail down to the lake. So we're gonna try and find a different approach here. So having left the closed Mount Surrail campground, the pathway just kind of dumped us out back on this main road. So we're going to follow it along and then go into the Interlakes campground, see if we can find a path from there. This road here with that curve and the mountain in behind it looks like something you'd see in a Go RVing commercial or something. Beautiful scenery even walking along the road here. So we're going to try this approach. Cache says it's 378 meters that direction, and we have this really good cut line there that seems to be heading in the right direction. So we're going to see if we can follow this down to the lake and where the geocache is. "275 meters ahead and to the left," and basically looking at the map, it's like if you hear splashing, we've gone too far. So the cache, according to the GPS, which I have in this other pocket, is still 225 meters but it's more off to our left. So as Emily and Mabel start down this hill, I'm giving them a head start, so if I come tumbling after, I won't wipe them out. But I think, or I'm hoping, at that second telephone pole in front of us, that that's a path that cuts off to the left. And for the record, we did see our first indication of bear. There was some bear scat on the trail right behind us. That's the first indication of bear we've seen since leaving our campground. And right around our campsite, there's been about 3 or 4 piles of bear scat. So definitely in bear territory here. This is actually a pretty well-worn trail. I've seen some mountain bike tracks, so it's got to go somewhere. Okay, coming up on that second telephone pole.
Yeah, this is the end of the lake.
Okay, we've reached the end of the lake here. I don't know where we can go from here. That looks like a cliff, so I don't think we can get down there. I don't see a trail over here really. I may have dead-ended us again. I think this trail, while steep, looks passable, not quite cliff-like, and then I'm hoping we can get down into this creek bed and follow it along to the lake. There we go. I put you in my pocket so I could have a free hand to hold on to things and a free hand to bring the dog down. And Emily's coming down behind me now. The worst part's right in front of you because there's a few loose roots there you don't want to trip on. And of course, the downside of any steep down climb is that means there's likely going to be a steep up climb for us to get back to the trail. Now, the trail we came in on, we saw this cut line from it, and it's just up on that little ridge there. So we're thinking on the way back we might be able to hopscotch across the creek here and then just bushwhack up to the trail and save ourselves probably 1.5 kilometers or so.
Made it.
Success! Okay, so we're working our way along this creek, and you can kind of see behind me the lake level is really low right now. In fact, a lot of where we were just walking would normally be underwater. But it looks like this little path we're on is going to kind of get caught on the side of the lake shore. So we're going to set course for going up this little hill here and see if we can find some sort of a path on the ridge here along the lakeside. Some nice wildflowers here. We're about 150 meters from the cache. And we've reached the top. And now we have to go back down. I don't know if that's kind of a trail. I'm going to go scout it. Oh yeah, it's fine. Okay, I'll bring the dog, can come down with me. That way she only pulls one of us to our death. Okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Could have been worse.
Help from some shrubbery.
All right, well, back along this lake ridge here. Keep getting closer.
Mabel, don't pull me down that hill.
Whew. Have we crossed the DroneOCan point yet?
Not yet.
Okay. For those who have followed our repair videos, you know that the DroneOCan line is that point in any repair project when you cross to a point where it's no longer able to get back to the original starting point. On a hike, the DroneOCan point is where you are reaching a certain point in a hike where the fun has gone out of it and it just becomes a death march. We're not there yet, but I can feel it getting closer by the minute. So Emily and Mabel are going to stay there and look at the lake, and I'm going to separate off and go hunt for the cache, which according to the GPS is just 10 meters over my shoulder here. 3, 2, 1 should be in here. Now it's called Just Hanging Out, and it said you may need to fashion some sort of a tool from the woods to get at the cache, so I suspect it's going to be fairly high up in a tree somewhere. There we go. I called over reinforcements, and of course Emily spotted it right away after I wandered around for 5 minutes. It's not nearly as high up in the tree as I expected it to be, because it said you would probably need to find a tool, aka a stick, from the forest to retrieve it. So I suspect it used to be up quite a bit higher, but has worked its way down over the years. Yeah, I can guarantee you that's not how this cache was supposed to be hidden. And I'll show you here, if you can hold that.
Way up. Okay.
This big thing here is actually a measuring tape. And by the way, this is a spoiler alert. There's a hook on the lower part, and you're supposed to get a stick to hook it and then pull it down with the tape.
That's ingenious.
I've seen a cache like this before. It was called something like, "Do you measure up?" So we'll try and hide it back in a manner that's more consistent with how it's supposed to be, because we didn't get the full experience of finding this one, given that it was hanging so low. All right, we're going to demonstrate. I got it re-hidden up there. So hopefully this stick and the branch I found it on is now strong enough. And we're going to show you how it's supposed to have been done. Maybe. Like so. There we go. Perfect. And then auto retract. So the next finders can have some fun finding it in the correct method.
Don't stick a spider in your...
All right, we're gonna work our way back along the shoreline into the Interlakes campground and then walk back to our campground, which is probably a more normal method of getting to this one. This kind of reminds me of the old days of hiking with my friends Harry and Graham, where we would get ourselves into these situations and one of us, inevitably Harry or myself, would come up with an idea like, well, let's just bushwhack up that cut line and follow the power lines and maybe intercept our pathway. And then Graham, who geocached under the name UK Can, would be our voice of reason and say, lads, why don't we just follow the path? He was British. That wasn't a very good impression. But anyway, we had ourselves more than a few adventures pre-YouTube days doing that. And we always said Graham was our voice of reason, Harry was our voice of adventure, and I was just kind of in the middle. But for today's adventure, Emily is playing the role of UK Can and being the voice of reason and saying, let's just hike back to the campground and take the easy way instead of bushwhacking through a bunch of deadfall along a cut line. Here we go. We come along the lakeshore, just coming up the pathway into Interlakes Campground now. Trying to find a path that didn't end right in someone's campsite. Very surprising that on a Saturday afternoon there's still some sites available here at Interlakes. We're going to take advantage of an empty site and have a quick sit on the picnic table, have some water. I'm going to catch my breath and then we'll start the hike back to camp. Whew. Well, the rain that we thought might be an issue has avoided us, so I've shed my outer layer and I'm just down to my t-shirt now, and that jacket of mine really captures or holds the moisture in, so feels good to be out of that. And we still may get some rain later, but right now it's sunny and nice. Okay, we've come to the high point, or reached the high point of our walk back along this paved bike / walking trail, but there's an important milestone just ahead of us here, and I don't know if you can see them through the trees there, but those are power lines, and those are the power lines that go along the cut line that we had thought about following to get back to this trail before we wisely, I think, opted to take the longer route. So we want to kind of take a look at the terrain we would have been faced with. Yeah, doesn't look like there's too much deadfall, at least here.
And that's the trail we came down.
But
Been all right.
it's hard to tell. There's a fairly steep drop off right at this first telephone pole, and it's hard to tell from here exactly how bad it actually is. Those telephone poles off in the distance, that's the trail we came down, and then the little creek is right at the bottom of this gully here, so probably would have been doable, probably would have been okay, but this is much easier. We made it. Boulder, sweet Boulder. Holy smokes, it is going to feel good to get this backpack off, let me tell you. Whew. So I forgot to reset the trip odometer when we left, but it was about 2.5 hours of walking. So we condensed that down into a few minutes for you because that's how much we care. Well, after a relaxing afternoon at the campsite of sitting in chairs, staring at trees, reading a book, doing some crochet, we've moved on to meal prep time. So I'll kind of give you the rundown of what we're doing here over on the table. We have a couple venison steaks that are just coming up to temperature, sitting there with some salt and pepper on them. We have our hobo pack of potatoes currently roasting in some butter, and Mabel just stole my chair while I got up. But we got some potatoes, and like I said, they're roasting in some butter right now inside the foil pack, and I'm just waiting for the fire to burn down a little bit more here into get some hot coals under there before throwing the steaks on. I make no promises, I offer no guarantees. All right, those steaks are almost done, but don't take my word for it. Let's flip around and take a look. Coming good. Ooh, hot, hot. All right. Now, it's the moment of truth. Those potatoes will either be raw or black.
I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna go. Oh, they look good.
Okay, those do not look raw nor black.
Awesome. Oh, I think they're perfect. Oh, heck yeah.
Oh yeah, that feels like it's cooked. The one side's a little darker than the other, but wish we had brought ranch dressing. These scream for ranch dressing, but a little extra barbecue or steak sauce will do just fine on those. Oh my God, some of those are perfect.
They're gonna be buttery.
Okay. Yours is the butterflied steak. Mine is the super thick cut.
Let's see what it looks like here. Oh yeah.
Seems cut tender.
Looks good.
I gotta see. Oh, not bad. I would have preferred it a little less cooked.
Yeah, same,
But you know, I'd rather. Yeah, I mean it's.
that's nice.
That's still pink. This would have been perfect for you, and a little bit less would have been perfect for me. I always like my steak cooked just enough that a good vet could still bring it back. Just going for a little post-dinner walk now here, down to Lower Lake through the B loop of the campground, a section we haven't checked out yet. Now I normally hate long pan shots because I find when you're watching them on the video they tend to make you feel a little sick, but I gotta show you this one because this is just amazing. So that's me. I think I'm mostly looking north here towards the campground, and I'm gonna spin slowly here to try and not make you ill, but just look at, like, surrounded by mountains on all sides. That's, I believe, to the south. Now I'm looking west. I got my directions mixed up, but it doesn't matter. That's 3/4 of the way around. And now back to where I started. Mountains on all sides. It's like being inside a giant natural punch bowl or amphitheater. It's just the surroundings here are absolutely incredible, and it's amazing to think that the campground is only about 75 kilometers of highway miles from our home. What a difference. So I know it's probably not that easy to see, but over across the lake, just about in there, there's a trailer, and that's where we came up in the Interlakes campground. And if I pan just a bit to the left, again, kind of right in this valley here, you can see those power lines that we were using for navigation this afternoon. And here again, this is the far southern end, I believe, of B Loop. It's amazing. Again, all the campsites through here have all been decommissioned. We're speculating that it's because of flooding of the lake. It can't be that they don't like generating revenue, because I'm sure these sites would be big time prime sites, especially for the people who are pulling their inflatable paddle boards and kayaks and things down to the water. But all the sites along here, all decommissioned. So we've heard some thunder coming from over the mountain, and so we think we may get a bit of a thunderstorm tonight. So we've opted to, pack up, put the awning away, put the tarp or the mat away, a few of the things that aren't fun to pack up when it gets wet. We put all those away tonight, and that way it also saves us time in the morning, because usually in the morning we get up, have some muffins, hit the road fairly early, beat the rush to the dump station, and it's also nice to get home and still have some time at home to recover and start editing video before we have to be at work on Monday. So that's why we did that.